Hello and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And today I am welcoming back Alexandra Leclere. Hello, Alexandra.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here with you today.
Well, I couldn't resist having you back because when we were last speaking about your more recent book, I discovered that there was your first book, which is Seeing the Dead, Talking with Spirits. Um, a rather beautiful cover. And
Mm, Thank you.
I, it's just one of those books. It's so easy to read, and because it's about your experience and how you discover the spirit world, it's
Right.
especially gripping. So, and it begins in Paris in a yoga class,
Yes.
which is the most unlikely thing I would have expected. Um, well, let's begin with that. Tell us about that.
Well, I spent about 17 years living in Paris, starting out first as a student and then got married and then had children and then finally as a businesswoman. And after I had my young children, a friend of mine said, "Why don't you come and join me on a yoga class?" And I thought, "Oh, that's going to be fun. It'll escape my children a little bit." And so I started doing yoga. And of course, with yoga comes meditation. I was working with the Shivananda organization, which at that time was being led by Vishnu Devananda, who is the follower of Shivananda. And so were doing meditation, and almost immediately I started leaving my body. And that frightened me a great deal. Um, but the people said, "Oh, well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." Anyway, I went on a retreat when Vishnu Devananda himself was coming to give mantras to people. And I thought, "Oh, great, that'll be fun." And so when I was there and he gave me my mantra, I was having a lot of trouble simply remembering what my mantra was. And that night, and how to pronounce it, and that night I had a dream. And there was Shivananda himself who came to me. It was kind of impressive in the dream, told me the correct pronunciation and said, "Never forget it." And I never have. And I still use that mantra today. And as I was continuing to do the yoga and meditation, and then people were saying, "Oh, it's fine that you're leaving your body," I kind of was like, "Well, no, I want to be here. I want to take care of my children." And the people were like, "Well, that's all right. Somebody will be there to take care of them." I was like, "No, no, no, I want to do it. I want to do it." And so I actually prayed, "Please let me take care of my children, raise them." And sure enough, just I the it wasn't until a number of years later when all of a sudden I fell ill. I had fibroids. I started to hemorrhage very seriously. And I was told by not one, not two, but three different doctors that I needed to have a hysterectomy. Well, obviously, who wants that? I wasn't very happy about it. At this point, I'm living in the United States, and uh, there is usually someone sent by spirit to help us if we allow that to enter our lives. And a friend said, "Why don't you go see a healer?" Well, I thought, well, see a healer, why not? I didn't even know at that point that they existed here. I'm talking about like 20 years ago. And so I went to see the healer. And by the time I saw the healer, I thought to myself, it's one of the doctors. I said, "If you don't have this surgery, you're going to drop dead in the street one day." I thought, drop dead in the street, have the surgery. I'll have the surgery, right? But I did go see the healer, and she facilitated my healing. I never had the surgery. So at that point, I was very interested in doing a documentary. I remember I was a documentary a producer, television producer at that point. And so I started gathering information about it. And the first workshop that I audited actually was the second day of a 2 day healers workshop. Apparently, there are lots of them around everywhere, I discovered. And I remember during the day, I was just totally, totally overwhelmed. I didn't understand anything they were saying, talking about jargon, whatever. And at the end of the day, there was a closure ceremony for someone who had died. And I thought, bonus, this will be fun. And so we gathered around, and there were three people sitting there. There was the younger man, an older man, and a woman. And all I knew was that the woman who had died was the mother of one of them. And so we did this ceremony, and toward the end of the ceremony, the man who was organizing it said, "Well, I certainly hope that this woman's spirit is here so she could see how much we care about her." Well, at that point, I, for some reason, believed all healers could see spirits. And I all of a sudden really, really wanted to see her. And so I really wanted to see her. And one, two, three, she appeared in front of me. And there she was, as clearly, as I can see you. And she was trying to comfort the woman who was seated there. Well, I was so excited and proud that I could do something that I thought everyone else could do, that I piped up and I said, "I know she's here. I can see her." And later on, I had it confirmed that, yes, I saw her, the mother of the woman, and everybody thought it was great. So at that point, I went home and I told my husband, "I just saw a ghost. Isn't that fun?" And he said, "Okay," kind of like whatever. And but I felt good about it. And that's a real key to being able to communicate with spirits, is to not be afraid and feel supported. Because everybody there thought that was wonderful. But then the next thing that happened for me, which was a lot less obvious, was that I started to see Native American, complete with feather headdress, standing next to me all the time. I honestly thought I was going crazy. So at that point, I told my husband, I see this Native American standing next to me all the time. And he kind of went, "Oh." And I thought, "No, he thinks I'm crazy. I can't let anybody know about this." And so I was a little hesitant about it. But, with spirit, when you need a teacher shows up. And I was interviewing lots of healers at that point. And the one I was interviewing, Melanie Noblick Bambino, said, "Let me give you a session." I thought, well, good, why not? She said, "Okay, what's going on in your life?" I said, "Well, there's this about my daughter, there's that about my son, and then I see this Native American standing next to me all the time." She was, wait a minute, what is that?" I thought, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. And then she said, I said, "Well, I see this Native American standing next to me all the time." And she said, "Oh, yes, I can see him too." I couldn't believe it. Maybe I wasn't crazy. And she said, "Why don't you ask him his name?" And I was like, "Ask him his name? No, why would I want to do that? I mean, isn't it a problem? I mean, if you hear voices, first of all, you're crazy, and then the voices tell you horrible things. No, I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to hear from him." And she was very nice and gentle and encouraging. And I felt safe. Again, that's the key. You have to feel safe. And so mentally, I asked him his name. And I heard Tonka. Now, for me, since I have sons, Tonka is a toy truck manufacturer. And so I thought, well, I can't say that. So she said, encouraged me again and said, I know his name starts with a T. I was like, okay. So his name is Tatanka. And she said, yes, that means buffalo in Lakota. Who knew? Well, that was the way I began talking to one of my guides, Tatanka. And once you break through the veil and start a communication, you've done it. Then you can really communicate with anybody at any time. So that was quite exciting.
It is quite a journey, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
the I want to come back to the out of body experience that you had whilst you were doing yoga, and this is, of course, the meditation um,
Yes.
of yoga. It seems that at this point you have no idea about out of body experiences, and you think you're dying.
I never thought I was dying, actually. I always thought that it was enjoyable. And I think that it's a lot of people don't realize it, but they spend their time out of their body anyway. And very often, people who have been exposed to trauma as a child learn this as a technique, survival technique. And so, it's almost that like I'm a flight risk. And it's very easy for me to leave my body. And again, for me, it was always a very enjoyable thing because it's just being out there is wonderful. But you still have to deal with physical life. So, it's important to be able to really get and stay in your body as well as to be able to get out of it, to get some kind of perspective on your life. So it's a technique which is very good to learn. In fact, for people who aren't what we call grounded, when I
Yes,
work with
I
them,
asked you about that.
I teach people. I help them to feel out of their body, to learn how to be more in their body and feel safe. And that's very important, to have that control over being grounded, over enjoying everything that is wonderful about being in a human body, as well as the bliss of being out of the confines of that human body. So it's
Perfect.
great.
That's perfect. That's a wonderful explanation because it I just wanted for people to know that this is not anything to be afraid of. You just
Right.
had a concern that you might not come back.
Well, I didn't know where it could go. It
Yeah.
was that it was like the way it was presented to me at that time, which I don't think is necessary the way it's always presented in yogic meditation. I think it was simply the people there who, I mean, there are people who try to do this a lot and don't succeed. So for them, this was like, wow, well, forget everything else, just go with this, and so would seem to indicate sort of abandoning everything and becoming, a yoga instructor and, going into that whole field, which I wasn't prepared to do. And I don't think was my mission anyway. I do believe in, just in parentheses, that all of us have things we're supposed to do in life. And I really didn't feel that that was something I was supposed to do, and most certainly not at this particular time in my life.
You also talked about a mantra being given. So, and in the book you talk about it in a sense that suggests that the mantra helps with manifestation. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Well, that basically a mantra is tremendously empowering, and we are at our most powerful when we are calm and connected with spirit, with creator. When we are calm and connected with creator, we can achieve anything. And most of the time, we spend our lives in physical frenzy, distraction, absurd worries, things that really shouldn't have any true relevance to life, but we get consumed by them. And there's just a lot of noise out there, even, and the noise isn't because somebody lives in a city, the noise is in our own heads. And so, what a mantra does is it helps make that connection by the sound of it. It has a sacred sound, which already gets that vibration going because it's all about vibration. And once we get into that vibration, then it helps us to become calm, connected to Creator, and then to really be able to get a good perspective on what is the next step. Where am I? What's really going on here? And that can be very beautiful. I mean, I use my mantra even sometimes without being in a setting of meditation, but just, because I just need that extra little boost. So that's really fun.
I love that you're demonstrating that your spiritual development was not pegged to one tradition or one discipline, that it begins with a particular type of yoga that you're practicing. And,
Yes.
and and then you have a Native American guide, which basically then means that you have a Native American teacher. And
Yes.
so, and I like that. It actually, my own experience is that my guides come from different traditions and that I'm getting exposed to things that I have never heard of and that I look up and then go, oh, that's a thing I didn't know. um,
Uh-huh.
but they are from different traditions, and all of them are complementing each other. And it seems as though my spiritual growth is being coordinated by a program of study of different traditions, and that's why I was fascinated to see that it's happening to you, and I imagine it's happening to lots and lots of people, that we are being given the wisdom of different traditions.
Oh, definitely. I was very fortunate that after my initial healing with Penny Leishan for about my fibroids, and I wanted to do the documentary about her, then I started trying to gather information about different healers, and I was going to Omega, which is a healing center in New York State. And there I got to meet a lot of different, very well known healers, John Perkins, and um, uh, all kinds of different healers in South American shamanism also. And so I took a lot of workshops there and learned all about it, about how to actually do South American healing practices, um, and also therapeutic touch, which is an allopathic, modern medicine, which is it's the modern medicine adaptation of ancient techniques, basically. And then, as part of that, was the Native American experience. And there also, I started out with Lakota, and then I did some vision quests, which are basically 4 days without food or water, by yourself out in the woods. And I did a couple of those in the Cree tradition, which, because I guess I was supposed to experience that tradition, but I was always brought back to the Lakota tradition, always. And I think that's because of my spirit guide. And that's what happens when we discover a spirit guide. The spirit guide basically will be of a certain nature depending on what you're supposed to focus on. Like you might have a spirit guide who is a Buddhist monk, because that's the direction you're supposed to study in. And they'll just keep bringing things, and you'll keep discovering them until you actually start to follow it. They're very persistent about it. Do it this way.
Yeah, my experience has been that it's almost like each of them is responsible for a different part of the curriculum, and the curriculum is about developing different aspects of myself. And
Yes.
I find that absolutely stunning, that's the way it appears to be.
Yes, yes. It's almost as though in an incarnation, there was a plan to experience different things, good and bad, and to also have different learning opportunities. I do believe through all of these many, many years of practicing mediumship and energy healing, and also working with people who have, had near-death experiences and things like that, that we basically have some things that are going to happen no matter what. Those are just good and bad. But within those different areas in between whatever is written, we can have a lot of choice in deciding what we want to do or not, so that we can turn down opportunities, unfortunately, because it's always better to take advantage of opportunities. But the universe is very forgiving too, so that you should never feel bad about any decisions, because I believe we're always doing the best we can. And so, instead of thinking, oh, I messed up that, it's like, no, I did the best I could, and that's what I could do then. Now I know better. And so, and when the universe thinks you really should be doing something or learning something, you will have that opportunity again. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, your book, the second part of the title is Shamanic Healing Through Contact with the Spirit World. Maybe it might be good to talk about shamanic healing. What is shamanic healing, and how does it differ from something like Reiki or hands-on healing?
Well, basically, a Reiki, I also know Reiki, which I subsequently learned to after already working for a number of years doing the healing that I do. Reiki, you call in spirit guides, a certain number of spirit guides that are associated with that type of healing. And you learn different symbols. And so you have these healing guides who come in and help you effectuate healing. And generally, shamanic healing is about going to another world to effectuate healing. So that what I do with my clients for healing purposes is that we travel, and there a healer can travel for someone for to do things like soul retrieval, or what I prefer to do is travel with my client somewhere, and that traveling together, I give them the energy to be able to witness themselves things that have happened, to correct it, and to extricate them from those energies that are holding them back or making them ill. And then I bring them back into into the present world, and they're released. And that's wonderful. It's really wonderful. So it basically is the difference between having healing aids and energy in the present, or traveling to the, as I do with my clients, traveling to the origins of an illness, and then getting those origins changed, dealing with that. And that could include going to a past life. An example of that would be a businessman came to me. This is an example I give in my book. A businessman came to me. Actually, his wife sent him to me. That's very often the case. And he had a twitch, and his eye would twitch whenever he would be in a situation of conflict. And of course, in negotiations, where you need to be very steely strong and not, have a twitchy eye, that was very unhelpful to him. So what I did is take him on a journey, and all of a sudden here he was, this businessman who never had done any of this before, and he started describing how he was it was in the Middle Ages. He was a farmer, and he was arguing with his neighbor about a border dispute. And the neighbor at one point picked up a tool and smashed him on the head. And in that past life, he didn't die, but he was severely wounded, so that the rest of his life was pretty much worthless. So then I brought him back, connected with that past life. And then usually there's a trigger for a past life in a current life. So I had him go back to the trigger in this life. And what he found was that when he was a young boy, he got beat up by a couple of bigger boys. And there was some conversation that took place before then, and then he got beaten up. And that is what triggered the past life where he almost died. And so for him, conflict equaled any kind of even verbal conflict equaled a possibility of death. And his eye would start to twitch to warn him. And after we did this, his eye stopped twitching. So hooray.
That's absolutely a wonderful example. I'm just wondering what the technique or mechanism is by which you are taking the person back. Because as an analytical hypnotherapist and a past life regressionist, I also use hypnosis. That's my tool to help the person go back where they need to go. How do you do this? Is it hypnosis, or is it something akin to hypnosis? Because the brain waves of meditation and hypnosis are very, very alike. So what are you doing?
Well, I actually did learn hypnosis later on. My whole practice is based on mediumship. When I go into a session with someone, I say a prayer to bring them, the highest good. And I say the highest good and joy because someone's highest good can be very painful otherwise, So I always ask it for it to be pleasant. And then pretty much everything I say is I hear first, I just repeat. And so then I do, and that includes the questions that I ask when I take them on the journey. The questions I ask, I usually give them energy first anyway to bring up their vibration. Vibration is key because low vibration associated with anger, depression, uh, keeps people low and they're not able to really get out of where they are, their pain. Whereas at a higher vibration, they're able to get out. And so we go there. Also, another reason that I use uh, journey work is because if I just talk to people, um, or even just use hypnosis, that because people, it's just a slightly different level of depth, I think, with the journey work. And so that people have more of a tendency, when I ask them questions, to actually incorporate and understand what comes up for as their best decisions. An example of that is that a man came to see me, his wife sent me, because his company was going to be sold. And I knew right away that he would lose his job and it was going to be awful, even though the company was telling him that that's not true. He would, this would be fine and everything, but that wasn't the case. And it happened to be a French family. And he said, but I don't like to tell people bad news. So I said, what can I asked, what can I tell him that isn't so awful? And Spirit said, well, he's had other job offers. So I said, well, you've had other job offers. And he said, yes, but I turned them down. I said, well, I think you should rethink them. And he said, well, but I have to go back to France for that. I said, well, but if you go back to France, you're going to be able to come back to the States in a better position. And so he said, well, so you're telling me that we should move, if his family and his children who all like living in the States. He said, oh, so you're telling us that we need to move back to France. And I'm just repeating what I hear from Spirit. And I said, no, I'm just saying that if you choose to stay in the States, it's going to be like a walk through shit. Excuse the language, but that's what I heard. And he said, oh, and so guess what they ended up doing?
Yeah.
They stayed in the States.
Of course.
And guess what? He ended up losing his job. It was horrible. They had a terrible time. But the worst for me was that it was a case of shoot the messenger, where his wife didn't like my advice. And so she decided to say, no, that's not true or whatever, which, blame me. And, the fact, and I didn't want things to be bad for them either. So that was very sad. But anyway, it was like I lost a friend. And so then I prayed very hard, how can I help people to give them the energy to really be able to make decisions in their own best interest. And Spirit said, use journey work. And actually, a little while later, a woman came to see me, and she was from Toronto. She lived in the community, and a husband and a couple of children. And it turns out that the problem there was that her husband was burned out. He was working on Wall Street, and this was even before the big crash a number of years ago. It was quite a while ago, but he was just burned out. And I knew right away that they should move back to Toronto. I never said it. I never told her that. We did the journey work, and during the journey work, I asked her questions, and she came up herself with the idea that they should move back to Toronto. And of course, I encouraged her in that direction. She went home, discussed it with her husband, and they ended up moving back to Toronto. And their children, they were boys, and they played ice hockey, and so that was great. And they had friends and all of that, and it was very successful. And I thought, yes, that's the way I want to do things. So there's that empowerment that can take place with journey work.
And that's, and that's very, very much a parallel to the work that I do using hypnosis as well. It's allowing for that
Yeah.
self-discovery to come in. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's so huge, what you're expressing there. It's vital. And the interesting thing is, you see, I'm asking you very closely because I have, using hypnosis, stumbled into, and I do mean stumbled because it was not what I expected, but stumbled on a few occasions into situations where my clients are having mediumship experiences because they are in a state of hypnosis. And I find that that is so powerful and so healing because it's happening when my clients are in a state of grief and bereavement. And
Right.
and it's an extraordinary thing when it's happened. And
Yeah.
and that's why I was wondering, what you are doing, because it sounds like you are connecting with spirit, and the imagery that you're giving to them to allow them to do the journey, which I think is possibly what's happening here also. But I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle, which is very interesting. So, wow, what
Yeah.
what a treat it is to be able to talk about this with you. And there's just so much to learn and to explore. So I would remind everyone that the book we are discussing is this one. And I will be putting a link to it in the description box. Seeing the Dead, Talking with Spirits, Shamanic Healing Through Contact with the Spirit World. Alexandra, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, it's really been a pleasure. And can I tell people about my website?
Yes,
It's
I was just
www.
about to
Yeah.
ask you, could you please give us your website?
Yes, it's www.alexandraleclere.com. And Leclere is spelled with E's. So there isn't an A in it. So it would be Alexandra and no space, and then Leclere, LECLERE.com.
And I will be putting a link to that in the description box, along with the link to the book as well.
Yeah.
So to
And
make
I just wanted to say also that I work with clients remotely via Zoom, and I have clients from all around the world.
perfect.
So,
Wonderful. Once again. And thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to be talking about near-death experiences and sacred texts. Until then, goodbye.